this week. Today was actually a big day for interest rates because they had the job unemployment report coming out. Um, and it was so, loan officers, mortgage companies, everyone was looking to see how the report's going to come out. It came out positive, and the market went up like 31 bips, is what we'd call it, which was huge because there's a big drop yesterday. Everyone was worried about the unemployment. The markets were looking to protect themselves, and so we saw some positive results. Another two other interesting things that went on earlier this week was housing sales dropped. I think they're
Mhm.
saying the end result was like 2.7%. Um, another a local interesting situation I've noticed. I've had a few properties where I'm working with some borrowers. I had on one property, we noticed it went down $50,000 in value last month.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a pretty significant chunk. I was just saying a few weeks ago, it's like I've noticed a lot of properties in the more rural. We're showing the places farther away from the cities. Housing's cheaper. We're still noticing the pricing going up, like the houses are still gaining equity, but we're noticing in your more, like in this case, there's a property in Bellevue, one in Kirkland, and one in North Seattle, and they actually dropped in value. So it's interesting to see how the price wars, the future's going to hold with that. We're still noticing also a lot of the tech industry. We're seeing a lot of people from California that can work remote. They're going to the rural locations. So I'm sure I'd be curious if we had someone from like Colorado or Idaho, where they can buy a lot of land, really customize a new house if, and work remote if we were seeing a larger influx. Because I know we're seeing that here in Washington, in the more rural areas, people are going remote, buying land and, a new house. As far as rates next week, it's going to be interesting because there's another big report coming out Thursday, and it's regarding inflation. And that can be a real big hit and miss for people. So
What did it come out last or the other report had it at? Was it like 4 point something percent?
as far as the interest rates like actually had
No, the inflation rate. The
um, they were it was supposed to be 2.9. It went to 3.1. And they're worried it's going to hit the fours come Thursday.
oh,
Last I looked, it was like my morning update that I get. So um, there's a lot of auction sales and different things going on, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I don't think that's gonna. I mean, people will look at those reports, but they may not. It may not hold much weight. The inflation report on Thursday is going to be the big one. So yeah,
interesting.
we have a new company we're using now also that's giving us direct reports, direct tracking of everything that's out there, and it's been real helpful. So
That's awesome. Do you have any concerns based on what you're seeing right now, or kind of what's your read on what's going on with inflation and interest and what's going on news wise?
definitely, because we still have people. In fact, Matt has one. He's doing a cash out refi. He's pulling out a large chunk of change to buy an investment property. Um, it's the next few weeks is going to be a real telltale sign of what's going on with the reports that are coming out. Because if you look at the long term on things and where rates are compared to January and then the year before, we're kind of, you look at the charts that are out there and we're kind of just playing this little up and down game. Um, if inflation continues to go up, we're likely to see our rates continue to go up. And it will, the average will be like 3.5%, 4%, where lately the average, like a first time home buyer or primaries, and 3% or below. That minimum will probably be 3.5 and then eventually 4. So I had one, we did a 60-day lock, on a really large loan. They were just like, we don't want to play with any of it. We want we don't want to deal with the stress. So, this is a good rate. We're going to lock it. And so we locked them. So
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I could definitely send out, like, if anything crazy comes out, I could send a message out.
Yeah. So would your recommendation be right now to, if you're a buyer, would you say, hey, hang on just a little bit and see how things pan out with the next several weeks?
If someone's in a contract, I would probably be, I'd recommend probably in the next, like Monday or Tuesday, locking. If I was in a contract on a purchase and I haven't locked yet, if I was still looking at, I'm looking at buying in the future, I would wait. And this is on like the retail side, investment side, that's a different ballgame. But people looking to buy homes, and they're doing financing, um, I would look at, like, if the market does dip, the way I've been saying, if they're looking at buying in the cities or, populated areas where the pricing skyrocketed, the numbers I'm seeing in Washington, the prices are starting to go down. If they're looking to buy rural, like, Granite Falls, this is a small town out in, nowhere land. And the prices are just continuing to skyrocket. I mean, the average price used to be around 350, 400 for a nice house.
Yeah.
Brand new construction, 450,000. Now those are in the 650 to 800 range.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, people bought houses over here because of the pricing and USDA and different things. And now it's just skyrocketed. And you'd never think that because it's about 2 hours away from Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a long ways out.
But
So what if you're a seller in this market and you're thinking about putting something on market? What would you say?
If you're comfortable with renting for a while, I would likely sell. I've had investors that have done. I mean, they've had multiple properties, and instead of refinancing for better rates, they sold because it is high. Everyone's saying they're still unsure what 2022 will have for us as far as like a depression or anything like that. So I mean, if you want some liquid cash, you want flexibility, it would be a good time to sell. We do have a lot of people in Granite that have been selling. You're seeing a lot of new listings pop up, and they don't last the week. It's like 3 days and gone.
Yeah.
So even at these rates.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling a lot of clients too. And it's a quandary, right? Because if you sell right now, you're then caught trying to buy right now. And if the market's super hot, then you're in a bidding war trying to purchase something, but the interest rates are so favorable, you want to buy right now because your buying power is bigger, right? So it's this weird little cycle, but I agree.
Yeah, I mean, if it's me personally, I would look at selling, and then being in the industry, seeing how prices are starting to go down. Buyers are saying, you know what, that's too much money, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so the listing agents are now going, wait a minute, this has been up for 12 days. That's unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had open houses. I was seeing open houses on like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you look, and these properties have been up, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that, a month ago, that wasn't happening. And then now I'm seeing, values, properties are going down.
Yeah.
So I would sell. I would hold on to that cash. I mean, I'd go live in an Airbnb for a few months and just watch the market. And then sellers are going to be hungry and like, I'll take anything now.
Yeah. Yeah. Join Alex in Guadalajara and an Airbnb, go enjoy
right. Totally.
a while. But,
I'm single. I'll be there.
yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Only single people are allowed apparently. So, all of us who are married, we're basically not invited, but yeah, no, it really is interesting. And I think I'm seeing a lot as well as a lot of listing agents are pricing improperly, because they saw the last comp being 200,000 over list. So they're pricing it at that number of the last closing, which isn't necessarily the best gauge, right?
Yeah.
So I think the wise listing agents are pricing it back at the average of kind of what's been listed and sold, and then getting a bidding war as opposed to a price reduction,
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so that's been what our team has been really trying to focus in on is all of our listings. It's tempting to be like, oh, that guy listed at 1.2, sold at 1.5. We got a bigger house. Let's list at 1.5 and we'll get 1.6. And that doesn't happen, right? Because there's no emotion. But if the listing agent can come back in at say 1.275 or 1.28, and then get a bidding war, then people come to the open house, they emotionally fall in love, and then they start suddenly getting their stupid emotional decision making, and then you get 1.6. It's the craziest thing. So
Exactly. Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. Take the money, hold on to the money if you can. Go get an Airbnb. I tell people, go rent. Go try a house that you never thought you'd ever live in, and rent it. See what you think. And
Yeah,
live in
I had
a-
a couple. they would Airbnb for 3 months and then go to another country, and Airbnb for 3 months and then go to another country. And they did that for over a year. It was awesome. Like, where are you at now? Oh, we're in Switzerland. Where are you at now? Oh, we're in Greece. We're learning the language. I was like, that's awesome. That's, what a great investment.
Yeah, especially when the kids were off of school and they're all Zooming, you can kind of Zoom from around the world, it's,
Yep.
but who knows? Apparently there's another virus, the bird flu or something like that's coming out of China. So we might go into another lockdown.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, we should all get ready to start traveling again.
Yep. Cool.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody got any questions for the mortgage side or lending or any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'm actually, I agree with you, Steve, but I'm taking a risk because we're in the middle of a purchase right now. And the other day, the rate obviously went up yesterday, probably again today, like you said. And I was kind of looking at this. I added the chart into the chat box here for the psychoanalysis daily chart. And it was this new program because everything else suggests to lock, right? If you're in a purchase. But this chart, it's historically been really good at collecting data and projection. And if you are a little bit more risk taker, it suggests that in July, mid-July, the rates should go back down below where they are now. I don't know if you want to take a look at that chart and let me know your thoughts, because
I was just trying to bring it up. Let me take a look.
Pivotal moment right now, personally, where we, for a primary, need to lock. And the difference is of like 10 grand in points right now.
What are they charging you in points? Do you know?
Well, it was 1.7
Okay.
and now it's over 2.
So you should, because I know.
I don't understand this chart.
Yeah, it's like Wall Street, stock charts, currency charts. They use the Japanese candlestick. It's a little too complicated to go over on this one. But there's certain trends that are followed. There's certain methods that are followed.
Essentially, it takes like all the analytics that tend to affect the market and rates, and they have everything's itemized in its own symbol.
And if I show you on mine.
Because I was looking at the other ones where it says, like, the other charts are a bit more simplified and everything says to lock right now, but I was thinking of waiting until July because the difference in the points was like almost 10 grand from 2 days ago to today.
It's not letting me pass. Yeah, and that, like, is this like the report I'm looking at, I could try to figure a way to save it and upload it. It shows like the rates should have improved for you today with the lender that you're with. Maybe they didn't reprice yet.
Okay.
You're in Hawaii. I mean, the market's pretty much done. So let's see I mean, it depends on the local company that you're working with there. They may not have repriced yet, or they may not reprice. It depends on each lender. But I know the company I'm with, Citywide, that we went through 3 reprices today. It's like we had a 9 o'clock and 11, and then we had another at 12 our time here, in the Pacific Northwest. Because the prices did improve. So I had one client, he was looking at, a very large loan. He was looking at paying $25,000, and I got him down to $15,000 by the is that one or a little before our phone call, like 12:30 is going to be locked because the pricing improved. That will likely continue for the next few days. Wednesday and Thursday are the scary days. Depending on Thursday, that's like what you're looking at price-wise right now today could end up, instead of paying like 2 points, it could end up turning into 4 points real quick. Because that's what
where are you leaning towards, Steve? Like about the news coming out on Thursday, inflation. Is it not? Yeah. It's not going to be good, huh?
Everything that's been going, it's leaning more towards the negative. The inflation report will, like this job report come Thursday, the job report's going to be meaningless. People won't even think about that. Like today, come Thursday, that's going to be their main focus. And if the inflation is higher than they were thinking, that's going to scare a lot of the mortgage companies.
So are you suggesting to lock before then?
I mean, for me, with my clients, I am just to be, it's better to be safe and be happy with what you have. I know you're looking at 10,000. When are you in a contract right now, or is it farther in the?
We are right now. And we're supposed to close mid-July. So ideally end of June, mid-July. So we could, in theory, take a risk and lock really at the last minute.
Mhm.
But you may even suggest locking Monday or Tuesday versus today.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up my chart.
This is really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
first
this is
oh, and thank
super relevant. This impacts every single one of us as investors as well. So thanks so
And
much.
I think it's important to know it is a jumbo loan too. So I know that would affect the rate. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, and jumbo, I mean, that is key, because jumbo uses, it's basically large private investors for a lot of these mortgage companies. When it comes to the jumbo loans, that is important. Yeah. I mean, for me, just dealing with this all day with people, because I've had people rush all the way to the last minute. If you're comfortable with the amount they're charging you, I mean, it is unfortunate that they're charging you more. If your mortgage company doesn't update their rates today, I would wait probably till Monday or Tuesday. You should see a drop. The point should go back down. So instead of paying 2 points right now, you're probably looking at 1.7, 1.5 in points, or a point and a half.
If they did update the rates today, would you suggest today, or do you think it would go even further Monday or Tuesday?
If they didn't update the rates today, I would wait till Monday or Tuesday.
And if they did update them today?
If they did update them, they should go down. I would likely lock, for me.
Okay. Instead of waiting Monday or Tuesday, because you don't think it would go down even further? They're big swings. The difference between like the 1.7 and the 2.1. I mean, it's like it's a lot of money.
That is. And it's like, we went, the market went down is like negative 28 points or bips on Thursday, and then it jumped up 31 on Friday. So it's like, it's those swings that are going on. We had a lot of people that were locking earlier in the week, and it saved them hundreds of dollars, by locking on Monday and Tuesday than they did on Thursday. When that report came out, we saw that huge, phew, thank you. But the other side of it is, it's like, say today is Wednesday, that job unemployment report's going, but you're like, you're not sure if it's going to be good or bad. So at this point, you're pretty much gambling. Mm-hmm. And then the report comes out and say, instead of it being good like it was this week, the report was bad. The unemployment was worse than we thought. Mm-hmm. So you probably would have gone from, say it was 2 points, you probably would have looked at 3.5 points. You'd have to purchase for that same rate. So it would have been, it's like, okay, it did go down a little bit. Then the report comes out, and the report, they didn't hit the metrics. It would have really gone, it would spike down. So that didn't happen. It backed up. We're on a high for the week for Friday, which is great. That high will likely lead Monday and Tuesday. I wouldn't expect things to, skyrocket Monday and Tuesday. It's pretty much going to be, shallow. Part of this, you have large investors that are testing the markets. There's like, when you read the charts, there's like certain barriers that get put in place between the Treasury, bonds, Wall Street. And we're kind of in that right now. There's a little testing of the market. They're looking at the feds. But yeah, the inflation report's Thursday. So you could either win big or, go, oh my gosh.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, should I just risk it and then wait until July if it doesn't go in my favor? But I appreciate your input a lot.
Yeah, I would say in Hawaii, Most of the companies will update or change their rates. Latest is like 1 p.m. or 3 p.m. your time. So I'd probably look at 1 p.m. and then 3 p.m. and then see. You may want to get a hold of the lender also. Some will not let you lock after a certain period of time. That would be horrible. Say, you do want to lock and it's like 3:10 and you message like, hey, let's lock. And they're like, oh, it's too late. Our company is, closed. Yeah, if you don't lock Monday and Tuesday, you shouldn't see a drastic change.
Right on.
Thank you again. And sorry for interrupting you, Kiko.
No, you're good. That was great. Super appreciate that. That was
Yeah,
great.
that was some great info in there and very relevant to Ashley and I, obviously. But let's go into some these needs and good deeds. Does anybody have a deal that they're working on or in contract for right now? Or getting close to it? I also want to throw out a question if anybody has any properties on market, and if so, what are they seeing with the demand? If they see if anything's slowing down or.
Well, in LA, it's the counter offers that I'm seeing on these deals. They look like investor counter offers. It's crazy, like a release inspection contingency, release appraisal contingency. I mean, this is a retail buyer. I can't believe it. It's insane. But yeah, it's
so it's still hot then, huh? Over there.
Well, I mean, keep in mind my business model. I'm mainly working on entry level cosmetic flips in SoCal. So I mean that the demand for that product is insatiable. So. But we are seeing a lot more aggressive terms from the retail buyers to get the deals, and I just think I would not want to be a retail buyer right now competing for that type of property. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Alex, you're spot on. Here in Vegas, I'm in Vegas right now, despite the beautiful beach background. A lot of the offers that I'm seeing right now, the retail buyers are now covering seller closing costs and even their excise tax. So it's weird. Everybody's borrowing from the investment world on the retail side to try to win a deal. And here in Vegas, Corey, to answer your question, the multifamily market is insane. We used to just a couple months ago pick up fourplexes, 350, 360, 370. Same ones, 480, 490, 500. $100,000 increase in a few months. So massive equity increases. Still pencils out at over 10% cash on cash though, because the rent rates are going up so high. So, but I mean, it's getting ridiculous. So we'll see what happens. Like they were saying about the interest rates and the inflation, but anybody else seeing anything in any markets you're in?
I know, and I don't know if anyone will find this interesting or not, but we do a 4-page cover letter with our offers that seem to have a really high acceptance rate. And it has, obviously the cover letter about the client, but then also a cover letter about the agency and what we do to make the process easy for the other side. And then also recap of their offer that's just in the center, really bold and out there. And just very easy to read and people really love it. And I kind of heard that they're in some states, in Hawaii, it's pending that they're going to remove cover letters from submitting offers, which affects us realtors at least, because it violates fair housing. People can see photos of what the people look like. They see the background. They're making biased decisions. So I know some people are using cover letters as an advantage to get their offers accepted for investors and or primary. I'm not sure if that's happening in any other states, and not many people know about that in Hawaii, but I know that it's in the queue to discuss removing.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
Crazy.
I think that's, yeah.
I have a terrible story for one buyer. I think Snohomish County's still kind of crazy up here. I'm not like super in this market, but I've lived here my whole life. And a buddy of mine listed his house. It's on an acre, 2,000 square feet, 3-bed, 3-bath. Listed his house at $739,000. He actually only had 6 showings over the weekend and 1 offer, but the one dude came in at $825,000. There was I feel so bad for that buyer. I'm like, bro, he would have taken 740. It wasn't like there was 7 offers and he was competing. They just came in. They had missed on probably, you know, who knows their story. They probably missed on 5 or 6 others that just came in hot after his property. I just felt bad. Felt good for my buddy, obviously. Felt bad for the buyer.
Yeah, yeah, but the buyer's happy, which is the good news, right? They got a property. They felt like
Yeah, it's fair market, you know, like
Yeah.
willing to pay that much, and like that's why like I hate the over regulation. Now they're thinking about not even allowing cover letters in Hawaii. Like that's ridiculous. I think
Well, it's the lawsuits that are happening on the mainland. Hawaii is always kind of far behind the trail of, especially because of the brokerage we're with at eXp Realty. They're becoming it's called a luxury branded company because it's becoming so large and international that they have more attention brought on them. So any of your big agencies tend to be a bit more restrictive the bigger it gets, and they have to tighten up their policies because they're targets, and they're just seeing the trickle because we don't have satellite offices that are separately run. We're one entity that's national and international. They see the lawsuits that are happening in other states. So it trickles down to all of the states equally. And they're seeing the lawsuits where buyers agents are becoming so litigious. Like coming soon, for example, if you have a coming soon listing and you input it into the MLS in Hawaii, at least, you are not allowed to accept an offer prior to going active and live. Because when you sign a listing contract as a licensed agent, once you sign that listing contract, you have to create a fair opportunity to the market for everyone to submit offers. And I know a lot of people who accept, 1031 exchange 100K above the coming soon list price, and they're putting in these really aggressive offers. So you have agents who are doing their job, but on the listing side, if you take one before it goes live, you can get sued over it. That buyer or the agent can. And they're seeing that in other states, not necessarily Hawaii. Hawaii is not really a litigious state overall. They're just implementing it because of the mainland.
I just don't see the reason to. I mean, the seller should have a right to know too, like who they're selling their house to, and like you take away. I don't know, if you restrict on one side, you kind of restrict, you have to restrict across the board, but then isn't there balance, isn't there compromise? Because, Kekoa and I are dealing with a situation with a buyer, and we kind of knew ahead of time what type of buyer this was. And you don't want to sell your house also to somebody who's just litigious or, they're not grateful for the property so you don't know who's coming into you want to know who you're coming into, start living in your house too, because you're liable as well. If you're bringing in a buyer, if you get to choose between two and you feel in your heart that one is, very litigious, isn't grateful, already feels they're being over, they're paying too much, then when you close and they own the property, they can come back and come after you, so you're taking away the ability for the seller to make a decision on who to choose to purchase their property too. But I hate that. But is that an EXP thing or is that a Honolulu Board of Realtor thing?
No, it's a Board of Realtor thing. It's in the 70s, the Clearwater Act. I don't remember exactly what it's called. But the National Association of Realtors had created the fair housing rules and regulations. And of that, they are stating that cover letters violate that because you see race, ethnicity, religious beliefs. I have one where the sellers blatantly said, we chose your offer because your client is a pastor. And I was like, you should probably, and then they tried retaining the pastor's deposits because he canceled within his contractual rights. And I just held that card in my hand to the client. And I said, look, they breached fair housing. There was multiple offers, which he confirmed that there was, and they chose yours because of your religious background. And now they're trying to retain your deposits. You can take it a step further if you want to. Not that I recommend anyone doing that, but obviously my client's best interest is to keep his deposits. I see both sides, but I do agree that sellers should have the right to know a background story, because if their family owned the house down the street, and they grew up on that road and they live 3 houses down, they're probably going to be more motivated to perform than anyone else. And that's nothing to do with race, religion, or anything. That's just heart. But there's this fine line, right? Because you can't control the masses. So how do you put regulation on that? And when people start taking advantage, then it creates restrictions for everyone, unfortunately. And it would be devastating to us and our client, because that's part of we would adapt, we figure out new ways. But I think it's personally awful. I hope that it doesn't pass, but other states are going to be trailing that blaze before Hawaii.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
just to, sorry to interrupt, but just to piggyback on that, we just listed a house in Reno Wednesday, and the realtor told us the same thing, that we cannot accept cover letters because it creates like a bias. And we live in a really great neighborhood. Our neighbors are super. So you wanna, we have some kind of care as to who buys the property next, but we weren't allowed to do that. So it comes down to the decision is just going to be based on offer price, basically.
yeah.
Price and terms. So what we're going to start to do just proactively is that if there's any cover letters with any of our listings, we're just going to put a disclosure to the sellers stating that they cannot make any biased decision based off of those fair housing rules. And then just ask people to leave out photos. Because that way we can eliminate, we want to do what we can within the industry to keep the right of, informing the sellers, and whatever we can do to be proactive and show that there is a responsible way to do that while still keeping this, I think would be a solution, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Like, okay, photos, maybe, like, if you really can't trust, if you got to treat everyone like children, and like tell her, okay, you can't put photos because it might create some sort of bias situation, then okay, let's eliminate photos. But cover letters, at least, like I'm down for that. I just feel like when you over-regulate, or there's other things, there's a purpose for regulation. It is to protect all parties, and it is necessary in some circumstances, but this isn't one of them. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's super smart, Ashley. Just putting that disclosure in there. So nice work. That's really good.
All right. I guess nobody has anything that they need, or what about you, Kikwa?
I need a nap, bro. My eyes, we've slept so those of you who don't follow me on social media, we've been in Vegas since Tuesday. We're under contract for 158 units in North Las Vegas. And of all the weeks we're doing due diligence, we have a severe heat wave. It's 110 degrees right now. And I'm sweating in places that I did not know existed on my body. Let me just put it that way.
Bro, I casually looked at the weather out in Vegas last night, and it was 97 degrees at midnight.
Bro,
and I was like, what is going on, bro? I was like, is my iPhone broken?
We can't even keep water. The water here is like the bottled water. We had to pay $4.99 a bottle yesterday because they're running out of water for people. It's crazy, but it's great. We have a lot of sweaty people around, but we're going in and out of 158 C to D class units, which not discriminating in any way, but the demographic of these types of units, my team, it's so funny. We walk out of every unit and there's faces about the smells and the look and everything else. And one of my guys go, man, today I have smelled smells I have never smelled in my entire life. Never forget for the rest of my life. So it's interesting, but yeah, if any of you ever decide to go into contract on a large unit, just hit me up. I can, we've learned a lot about how to strategize a team of 20, mobilize inspectors, timing, tenant notifications, and access.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about so how did you break it up? Because obviously you're not going to go through 158 units, are you?
Me personally, I've been in 10. And
Yeah, so you guys break it up in teams?
yeah, so we hired 4 inspection teams. So there we divided the 40 units per inspection team. We divided 160 air conditioning unit inspections, which I feel bad for because these guys have to be on the roof. So we got 160 HVAC units to inspect. We got 8 acres to inspect. And so what we're trying to do with this property is we have it under contract for 14.5 million. And what was interesting about, and that's 158 units, it's 160 units total. 2 additional units are owned by individual homeowners. So what we discovered during our negotiations, just haphazardly, the seller happened to mention that each of the 158 units that we're buying in one contract are actually all separately deeded, which was game changing.
Game changer.
Absolute game changer. And I mean, I'm just like, are you sure? So we asked title, and title's like, yeah, we're sending you 158 deeds preliminarily right now to review.
Woo!
We don't really want to review 158 deeds, but I'm glad to see that they're 158. So yeah, so we have it in contract for about 91,000 a door. 73 doors are 3-bedroom, 1.5 baths. Then we have a 48 or so that are 2 bedrooms and then 1 bedroom. So a really nice mix. And we got 20 different buildings. So, I mean, we have the opportunity here to actually just close on it and then immediately just put it back on market individually as is, and probably make 30 grand a unit or so. So fairly decent. But at the same time, there's, you know, the market's strong. So yeah, so we flew a team down. I tried to get Corey to come down, but Corey doesn't like the heat. So, you know, yada, 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 yada. But we're doing inspections. So we did, let's see, we did 40 the first day, which meant that we were 20 behind. So we did 60 yesterday. So we caught up, trying to get another 40 done today, and then all the extras. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So big teams is really important, planning it all in advance. We had the cops called on us twice by tenants, so that was fun. We had one lady who had a seizure from anxiety because there was so many of us in the unit at a time. So we go into a unit, we got a team of 5 at a time that takes different corners. We're measuring floor plans, someone's testing appliances, someone's checking toilets, and everyone just kind of does their thing, and we're out in generally about 11.5 minutes is the record time per unit. But I mean, it's like the tenant opens the door and then this army of people flood in. And on top of that, we have a few of us that are kind of just bouncing between units to look at them. We've had investors fly in. And so sometimes there's up to 10 new people, but this one lady had an anxiety attack, literally had a seizure, had to get rushed to the hospital in an ambulance because of us.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? So we're like, oh my
Take it
God,
easy, dude.
this is crazy. We're going to have a lawsuit during an inspection. Never had that happen.
No.
Then another unit, it was really sad. It was a 3-bedroom. We walked in and some of our guys just came out. I'm going to tear up just a little bit, but there was 4 kids inside the house that they just literally had no clothes on. They had no food. The ground was just totally just so filthy, and the kids were so dirty. And you know, our guys came out and they were just in tears. They're like, we have to call CPS. And I was just like, we got to do it. And it's so hard to see sometimes.
Yeah.
See people live in those conditions, you know, and you're just like, you know, we're investors and we want to get good deals, but when you go into units and you see people, you just in that state of life where they have no hope and they've got no money, and kids have to suffer for it. It's heartbreaking, but it helps us to realize that what we get to do is we get to provide housing for people who need it the most. And that's what drives us to do what we do. And that's why I love B and C class neighborhoods. Sorry, I'm a little tired. So, but yeah, it's been pretty amazing, but lots of different emotions. So that one's a hard one. So we called CPS, and so CPS is going to come pick up the children, probably. So we ended up with photos of everything because we were taking photos of all the units. And so we took pictures of the kids. One of the kids was completely, I think she was high. She might've been 11 years old at most. So it was just so sad to see something like that. They had no furniture, and it was incredible. And so those kids unfortunately are going to get taken from their family, but hopefully they'll have a better place and a better future. So so we're going to send them to Layla because we know Layla loves children. All right, so let's talk about something else.
Well, you did the right thing, bro. And yeah, that's a rough one.
It's tough.
That's a first.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, Monica had a question.
Something happier.
Yeah, I have a question. Well, thanks guys for whatever input because it's so good to hear. My husband and I, we were looking into this one property, and I've been chatting with the seller realtor, and I think is I believe is bank owned. And the seller is the realtor is kind of like, just don't care. I guess he just want to sell it. But one of the property is actually occupied by a tenant who is not paying rent. And, because I asked, hey, is any of this, dwelling is occupied? And it's like, yeah, it's occupied, but the guy has no paperwork, he's not paying rent. And my question is, I think a long time ago, I heard Daniel talking about trying to get some of the guys out of the unit and what's, hard about it and what are the steps you go through it. What do you guys think or suggest about putting an offer, knowing that even though in the contract you might say you want it vacant, but the guy might not even want to get out of there? And at the same time, I feel what Keiko was saying is like, man, we don't know what these people are going on, like what's going on in their lives. If they need a house, I cannot place them to another place. But what have you guys went through that you guys can give me some input on that?
That's a great question. Oh, Monica, especially in these times, and Ashley is going through something similar. So I want to open it up to the room to get people's suggestions. Not so much to purchase, but an existing rental, and it's so hard because sometimes it's hard, especially in these times, to balance like our responsibility as business owners to make proper decisions for the people that rely upon us. But also making sure that we're leading from the heart, and taking each deal and each situation as it should, which is individually, and looking at each situation and each deal and giving it the attention it needs, especially if it's a sensitive situation. So, and then there's times where like, you might have a tenant that just took advantage of the situation and the circumstance, right? And now then we have to protect ourselves and our families and the people who rely on us, right? So there's a fine balance. But does anybody have anything for Monica on her question? Because I'm actually very curious as well. There was news about the moratoriums being lifted, I believe.
I missed the question. Sorry.
Can you repeat it briefly, Monica, the situation and your question?
Yeah, the question is, I'm trying to get this one property and it's occupied by a tenant who is not paying rent, doesn't plan to get out of there. And what if we put a contract and says that we need to have the property vacant? But then, do we go through the eviction process? Do we let the seller go through the eviction process? Do we pay the tenant some money to get out, or I just call my buddies to kick them out, or whatever?
Is this in Hawaii?
What is it?
Is it in Hawaii?
Yeah, it's in Hawaii.
So Hawaii, there's a moratorium where you cannot evict. It was supposed to be lifted in June 8th. They extended it to June 30th. They're talking about it being extended probably another 2 months, but we don't know for sure. So there is, though, if you purchase in a transitional sale, a new owner can evict, however.
Okay.
An existing owner cannot. So the new purchaser has to be willing to go through the eviction process. And they are allowed to do that if there's a transfer of title or a sale. That's the only time. Otherwise, if it's the person who's currently owning it and you don't want to take on that risk, it's a whole ordeal. it depends on how far behind they are on rent. Once
Mhm.
they sign the bill, they're discussing, it's a sort of if they're 4 months plus behind, then everyone is required to do mediation in order to evict a tenant. So in that mediation, they say 20% of the time it will successfully avoid an eviction, and the tenant and landlord can come to an agreement. So if they're over 4 months behind, you can get one of the first 30 days of mediation, but that's probably not going to start until January. Unfortunately, they don't know for sure. It might be sooner. Say if they sign the bill in September, then that might come into effect right away. And if they're only 1 month behind, like my tenant, he pays partial payments. So he makes sure that and it's Venmo. So one of my tenants does a Venmo. So I have no choice but to accept the payment because you have to accept it to send it back. So making partial payments, he's technically 1 month, even though he's 3 months. So if that's the case, if they're 3 or 4 months behind, then you don't get that mediation appointment for 3 months and 4 months. So a lot of these evictions, and they're trying to do that so there's not a rush of foreclosures and evictions and sales that are going to alter our market drastically and immediately. And then obviously reduce the homeless because they don't have the right infrastructure to place those tenants. So it's up to you if you want to take the risk. If you want to buy it with the tenant in there, you can go through the eviction process. If you want them to do it, it's not going to be until January, December next year.
I see. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for your question. All right.
I can include the link with that information too. If you,
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
yeah, for sure.
I have something to say about that too. I bought several properties with tenants in place, and I've relocated probably a dozen at this point. So I found that they want one of two things. Generally, they want time or money. If they're greedy, they want a lot of both. So what you want to do is have some type of kind of open dialogue with them, and sometimes that's during escrow to get a better feel of kind of where their mind is at, of what their goals are. But it really is a tricky situation because you're trying to give them what you can, make the deal work, but at the same time, they can get they can be entitled, and then they feel like, I see both sides, like what Ashley was saying, where like we're providing better housing, and sometimes these people are paying significantly under market rent for many years. And to be frank, like how long do you expect for that to like last? Like just forever? Like I'm sorry, like that's not even like the real world. And then also keeping affordable housing for people that don't have a higher income. So but some of the tenants, I think what I've found the most is just taking an approach of a human, and saying, hey, look, this is a business transaction, but I'm going to work with you, and trying to have some type of open dialogue with them. Some are going to be hostile anyway, just because you're the reason that they're going to have to be relocated or whatnot. And some can be very savvy and get lawyers involved and all that. But if you really just approach it from a human standpoint and say, hey, I don't want to be the bad guy here. I'm just here to help you out. And what do you need? Do you need this much time? Or this is the options that you have. And and you got to know your rights, like Ashley was saying as well, because we can't let these tenants kind of muscle us around as investors and landlords. I'm sorry, like it's not, like we have a business to run as well. And so frankly, I'm just not afraid of tenants because I've dealt with so many, and if they're going to go hostile, they're going to go rogue, then they're going to do that anyway. But for the most part, most of them are going to be somewhat reasonable. And I usually pad, for me in LA, it's like about $10,000 cash for keys, sometimes up to 20. In Hawaii, it's more. And if your numbers still work, then don't be afraid and buy that property. If you have some like very, very hostile people and they're hostile, then maybe those are the ones you want to avoid. What I've also found to be like the ones that are the hardest are the ones that are paying significantly under market rent, and they're part of like the protected classes, like disabled, elderly, people that are really, really kind of, have a lot of, minor children. So maybe those are the ones that you might want to avoid. But if it's, not in those, in that category, then I wouldn't be too afraid of it either, especially if it's a good deal. Just make sure the numbers work and you have some cash for keys in there, but then you also have a longer holding time, kind of a hybrid, to make sure that it is still going to work, because you are going to maybe have to work some time to give them maybe a couple of months and then some cash for what they're doing. I also like to pay property management companies directly, so then now they have a lease somewhere else. So then if they can get approved, you can help them get approved somewhere else. then that might be a way of also, working in that money. You give them some money and then you pay the property management company. You also pay the movers. So there's also ways of that structured in a way where they don't have any money. But I avoid it giving them money up front. Like say, some of them want money up front before they even move out. And so we try to limit that to very, very little, because then there's no guarantee they're going to move out. And then they can use that money to lower up too if they don't have money. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
Awesome. Thank you, Alex.
yeah, that was great points. I agree 100%. And I think you also need to be aware of like what market you're in. Is your market tenant friendly or more landlord friendly? Like Hawaii is, tenant friendly, and California, same thing, right? They got rent control over there even. And then in like markets like in Texas, it's definitely landlord friendly. You can get tenants or squatters out within days. So I think you have to consider that too before making any decisions, going in or out of properties with existing tenants. One thing I would suggest, especially in Hawaii, because I've seen this happen, is that I wouldn't purchase anything, especially in these times, with the owner in the property. If tenants is hard enough right now, I think, and obviously it matters what market you're in, but in Hawaii, I'm assuming Seattle, Kikoa, or anybody from Seattle, would you say Seattle is more tenant friendly or landlord friendly? And I'm guessing it depends what county you're in too, right?
I mean, I think everybody's tenant friendly right now just because of the eviction
Right.
moratorium, so we're all kind of stuck in that. And so, but I think the thing, maybe to help even also answer Monica's question, I think we got to remember that every tenant is human and every human has needs, and every human who has needs those needs met. And
Right.
we're not necessarily, as the owners of the properties, going to meet all their needs, but sometimes the greatest need that these tenants require is, for lack of a better term, a kick in the ass. So I'm not a brutal owner by any means, but sometimes, they're lazy. And especially during COVID, there was so much money available if they were willing to just go put a pen to a piece of paper and apply for the CARES Act. And, there's so much of that. And so I have no compassion for tenants who take advantage of landlords, whether that's our clients or a property that I own, or, any of that kind of thing. I mean, that's lazy, that's unreasonable, that's unfair, entitled, so there's very little grace for that type of behavior, in my opinion. However, I feel like sometimes those people, they just need a really good kick in the ass. Like they really do. And sometimes evicting them is the greatest way to be like, hey, you're about to go homeless. However, we, as you know, Corey and I are part of a property management company as well in Washington, is that we give them resources. It's kind of like, we're going to kick you out, but we're going to give you a hug on the way out. And your hug is, here's 10 people you should call because you should get unemployment. You should probably consider going to get this assistance. Your kids can get free lunch program. Like there's so many things you should do. Like the fact that there are homeless people and starving children in this country drive me crazy, because our country is so set up that, I mean, you can literally live just fine as a homeless person. Not great, but there's no reason to be living in those types of environments. So when it comes to the fact that you're buying a property with some tenants that may be difficult, is you got to come in as a business owner and make the decision based on what makes sense for your cash on cash or your IRR, your cap rate. However, sometimes those decisions to protect your financial investment is going to involve some lives. And some of those lives are helpless. You got this old lady who's got one of our tenants in one of our properties. When COVID happened, her kid had to stay home, and then she couldn't go to work because she's a single mom. And her kid is a high needs disabled child. So she's like, I can't work, so I have no income. I can't pay rent because somebody's got to watch my kid. I have no money to pay for babysitting. He's high, risk. He's high need. He's handicapped. So I can't pay rent. We're like, God bless you. Stay as long as you need. No worries. We got you. Because that's a special story. But for the
Right.
tenants that you look at their tenant rent roll when you're buying a property and you evaluate that it's been 7 months and
Right.
COVID, they haven't paid $1, like,
Mhm.
yeah, kick their ass as hard as you can because they need it, you know?
Right.
And
Mhm.
that's love, right? Is to be like,
Mhm.
get your butt out there, get a job, get some help. There's so many resources. And and here's the list of people you should call. And if you don't have a computer, we can tell you where at the city hall you can get free access to all this stuff. You know, I mean, it's so available, it's out of control.
Yeah.
So there is a balance, you know, we're very
Right.
compassionate, but then at the same time,
Tough
that
love.
entitlement mentality sometimes it's tough love and somebody's got to give it to them. And so sometimes it's the best thing. But I'll tell you though, you know, I own a property in Tacoma that had a tenant hadn't paid for 8 months. And, you know, I was paying the utility bills and everything on that property, and it was driving me crazy. And so the key sometimes to getting people out is definitely, as Alex said, it's time or money. You know, they need more time because they're trying to get a job. Hey, if you're getting a job, great, I'll give you more time. But, you know, meet me halfway, let's negotiate, you know, so see what they're willing to do and then work out a plan for the tenant to be able to transition if you can. Cash for keys is always an option. You know, Alex has got a bigger budget and more generous than I am. I don't give out those numbers of digits to get out. You know, it's like, what? That's ridiculous. But you know, it's really a negotiation thing there, because the caliber of your tenants is going to determine the caliber of your property.
Yeah.
So,
And I think the point of that too is like, just because you can help someone doesn't mean you should. You know, like, because sometimes helping someone is doing a disservice for them because like they're used to it, you know, and but there's others who deserve it. Like they've done everything they can, and the circumstances outside of their control, like COVID, you know, and like their employment, you know, their current employment situation. So I think I agree with what Kiko says, and I think what majority of people here on here are saying is just like, there comes a point where we have to take responsibility for our own lives, right, and our own situations. But yeah, if we can help somebody, and they did, you know, it's the right thing to do, then let's do that. So, but are you in contract right now, Monica?
No, and that's why I was just checking to see what I have to go through and figure out on our end first. So I'm still looking so I can have Keiko Capital funded for me.
Well, keep us updated.
Hey, Monica, if you don't have a good real estate agent, make sure you get a good real estate agent because they've got to represent you well. And if they understand the rental space, that's super important. Second thing I'd share with you is make sure that your offer is subject to a lease review. Which then means that you get rent rolls, you get financials, you get to see everything. Don't let the fact that there are some rumors of bad tenants or the articulation in the listing of bad tenants cause you to slow down. If it's a good deal, lock it up. Timing is everything in today's market. There's still great deals out there, but you got to be quick. But your good agent should get you some contingencies to get the information you need so you can evaluate it. And then during your contingency, while you're locked up, then you go back in and try to figure out the tenant situation. Good news is once you're locked up, there's a possibility you can negotiate with the seller to give you more credits because of maybe a difficult tenant.
Right.
I've been negotiated in the past where we had 2 tenants in a property for one of our clients out of 7, I think, of units that were not paying. So I got the seller, because we're under contract, to not go back on market, but instead work with us. And I got the seller to give us a credit in the amount of 6 months of future rent for each of those units that had bad tenants. And then my buyer was like, yeah, that sounds like a great risk. That gives me 6 months to negotiate or use it for cash for keys. So key there is lock it up, get a great agent, and make sure you design in some great contingencies.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
With that said, you know why, guys, I knew when COVID happened, it was a little scary, right? Because there's so much uncertainty last year. But you know why I knew we were gonna we had no problem. We're gonna survive whatever comes our way is because Kekoa is probably one of the most creative guys I know. And now more than ever in times of volatility and uncertainty, you need to be creative, whether it's to get yourself into a deal in the creative in the negotiations or creative in strategic planning, you know, to navigate choppy waters or uncharted waters like last year. We need to be creative. We need to think outside the box. We need to be a step ahead. Like Ransom was saying last week, is like, let's prepare ourselves to be proactive rather than reactive. Like, you never want to be reactive, right? You want to be the one blazing the trail and people are, you know, riding your wake. They're riding in your wake, you know, you lead, and let's stay a step ahead of everything. So I think these calls are very important. And when we started this coffee talk, that was the whole point is, hey, we're all at home. Let's get on the call with our friends. And it's probably, this call has brought, I think, us together in ways that I could never have imagined. And I appreciate everybody jumping in every Friday. Kekoa, I really want to dive in on that, this acquisition we're in, and especially since I got to get updated a lot too, because I don't even know where we're at. Are we funded on that? Do we have that? Do we need money still?
Well, if I could stop freaking crying, I could probably get back to work.
No, we love you for that. And like, you got a big heart, just like everybody on this call and within our sphere, you know, so I'm sure everybody feels the same way. But I want to hear the whole story, you know. I'm sure the whole team had experienced something like I never walked into a situation where we had to call CPS, you know, so
it's crazy.
Into some pretty gnarly ones, but not that. So
yeah, one of our realtors on the Las Vegas team was we were just casually having lunch, and he kind of stretched out his arms, and then we suddenly saw in his waist belt that he had a gun. We're like, bro, what's going on? Like, dude, this is a scary place. I'm like, I know, but you know, we'll stick together. But yeah, it's interesting. You do these levels, this demographic of caliber properties, these C-class properties, you know, you're going to run into some situations. So it's interesting. But yeah, we'll keep everybody updated. It's an interesting project. I think putting it together is going to be really interesting as well in terms of potential syndication or a tenants in common arrangement. So kind of working through some creative ideas there. But right now it's just, you know, just kind of taking a look at it. There's lots of good opportunities right now, all markets. I think everybody's looking and trying to find good investments. And I would say, get looking. As we heard earlier, there's some changes that may be coming down relative to inflation, as Steve said, and some changes that may happen with the interest rates. So the more prepared we are and informed, the better. And we're continuing to try to source deals. And I think that's going to be a good thing for all of us. If you're constantly looking for deals, then you'll be constantly in the know. And as you're in the know, you're going to have the ability to pivot quickly because you're already in motion. So if you're just sitting on the sidelines and not in motion, when things change like inflation or opportunities, you got to get the momentum to get going. Does that all make sense? So yeah, we're rocking and rolling here. And in fact, just during the coffee talk, we had 2 more multifamilies get accepted. So yeah, it's a busy day.
Yeah, Mr. Alexander told me that, did we close out the capital raise for the 158 unit?
I had an investor show up yesterday and they dropped down a whole lot of cash.
Alrighty. Well, we are also working on closing a big deal, which will provide us capital to do some gap financing on a larger scale than we initially planned soon. So everybody stay tuned. Maybe we'll have some news for that, I don't know, next week. So hope everybody had a great week and has a happy Aloha Friday. And, you know, we'll hang out for a little while, a few minutes, but otherwise we'll see you guys in the Facebook group or next week. Aloha.
Aloha.